Welcome to the Catch Moby Strategic Sales Podcast, the best advice you're going to get on closing large strategic B2B customers. I'm your host, Christopher Windisch, a 30-year veteran of B2B sales and marketing, and I'm going to share my sales and marketing journey, and I'll interview other industry leaders to give you practical advice you can actually use to start closing bigger deals. All right, welcome to the Catch Moby Strategic Sales Podcast. I'm so excited you're here with me. I wanted to do this podcast for so long because I've literally got 30 years of lessons learned and embarrassing stories and, of course, lots of opinions just kind of rattling around in my brain about sales and marketing that I can now share freely with you. But if you get bored of listening to just me, once in a while we are going to have a guest on to share their embarrassing stories and lessons learned about what they've seen in the industry. But all of this is really here to help you land and expand these large accounts. That's kind of what we're focused on. Strategic accounts, big customers, big revenue, all of the above. And I know it seems impossible some days, but believe me, if you keep listening to this podcast, we will break down everything you need to know and everything you need to do each week, 30 minutes at a time. So I know marketing and sales and executives are all busy. 30 minutes at a time to start reeling in those $1 million accounts. And believe me, those large accounts can change the direction of your organization and they can change the trajectory of your career and your life. They're a big deal. It's why we're solely focused on the niche, strategic accounts, large customers, and big deals. So I feel we're starting off episode 1 here with a bang. I mean, this is really getting at the heart of it. 5 reasons why you can't close a large account. Now, these are tips that even the most seasoned sales executives can use right now to start kind of landing and expanding large customers. It could be for a chief revenue officer who's in a new role and trying to figure out creative ways to grow revenue. It could be for sales executives trying to focus their team efforts. And it could be for the individual account executive or salesperson who's trying to figure out how they can kind of land these large accounts in their strategic territory. So it's really for anyone from an executive level down to the execution layer, again, trying to build out the strategic account program and bring in large deals. It could be for a CEO as well who's got a startup and they want to have 2 or 3 of these big logos in their pockets, not only for the revenue, but obviously for the use cases and the logo and all the benefits that large customers bring to you, which is there's so many benefits if you think about it. There's hard benefits, soft benefits, there's financial benefits, marketing benefits, sales, even customer success, product support. All of these organizations in your company are going to be better with landing larger accounts. So most of the sales leaders I talk to out there are today, frankly, they're really just tired. I mean, God, they sound so tired when I talk to them. Because sales is hard and it's getting harder and harder every year. And I've been doing this for decades. And I think this is one of the most challenging environments ever to sell something, especially when you're trying to get noticed with larger organizations because there's a lot of noise out there. Now, CROs are telling me that, their companies are asking them to kind of get down and sell to accounts now. And another thing they're telling me is that they can't reach anybody, right? Especially after COVID. Nobody's answering the phone. They're barely answering their LinkedIn message because they get flooded or email. It's very tough to get in touch with someone. And so that's kind of the secret with larger accounts, right? It's not just about dialing in, trying to get a call or sending a few emails and trying to get a lead. We don't really talk about leads in large accounts. A lead is when you're trying to look over 100 or 1,000 accounts and figure out which ones are interested in engaging with you. When we're going after targeted large accounts, we don't look for leads, right? We don't look for awareness. We look for attention. We know what accounts we're targeting. We know where we want the revenue to come from, and we just need to get their attention. And to do that, more and more these days, you need to get the right person at the right time with the right message. And, hey, a little bit of a shameless plug. That's exactly what we do at Catch Moby. We do all of the sales enablement and automation so that sales executives can walk into a warm account and just start selling. And we kind of handle all the blocking and tackling that, we know your salespeople don't like to do. But let's get into the episode. I mean, this is a bit of a teaser episode because we're actually going to do a full podcast on each of these points. So I've got 5 points why you can't sell or close a large deal in a large customer right now. I'm actually going to have a follow-up podcast on each of these points because each of these points you could talk about for hours. We won't, of course. Our episodes are only around 30 minutes, but we'll have a separate episode. But I thought today I would just distill it all down to give you something you could use, literally today or tomorrow to go and start thinking about landing and expanding these accounts. So the first main point is going to be mindset. Now, I know a lot of times when I'm looking at self-help gurus and weight loss and making more money and bettering your career, a lot of people point to mindset, and I kind of roll my eyes. But let me tell you, in this instance, it's absolutely authentic and genuine. Mindset is 100% critical. The good thing is that mindset is not set in stone. You can change your mindset. So if you're a CRO and you have an organization and you've never had a strategic account program, or if you're a sales rep, you've only sold the small, medium accounts, you can change your mindset focusing on large accounts. Now, we use kind of the whale analogy, kind of goes with our brand and our theme, Catch Moby, because people don't fish for whales. They hunt them, much like large accounts. They don't set out a bunch of lures and bait and they wait for a nibble. It's kind of what we call marketing today. But they actually track the behavior and movements of the whales, right? They had used different tools. They don't use hooks, they use harpoons. And they put an entire plan in place to hunt them. So the thinking is that not only is this strategic and campaign based, but you need to understand that you're in for the long haul, right? This is not a sprint, but a marathon. That's kind of the change in mindset. Your success, therefore, is not really measured in, these deals that you're closing and this kind of accumulating revenue, but it's actually measured by activity and relationships, right? It's a very high risk and high reward scenario. And over my 30 years, I've known countless reps who have courted customers literally 9 months, 12 months, more than a year. They've gotten to know people at the account. They've gotten to know their families. They've gone to events. They've gone to conferences with them. And they literally have, at the end of the deal, nothing to show for it because they lost the deal. That's the kind of investment you need to be prepared to put in. And that's the kind of loss you need to be prepared to have, and the ability to bounce back and start that investment with another company, hopefully, wiser and being better able to qualify those accounts. But that's the kind of resiliency and tenacity you need to have. And because of that, you need to be more strategic, right? We are talking about strategic accounts. So you need to be more strategic, right? In the very beginning with your territories and your years, you're not building an account plan, you're building a campaign, right? The account plan may have a lot of the good details about how does your product or service fit the customer? Who do I talk to, right? What are my competitors? What are the partners? It's kind of an execution plan, but a campaign is an all around plan with anything and everything relevant to your account that could affect your deal. I mean, you could be tracking commodity prices on the Nikkei. You could be understanding your biggest partner and what acquisitions they're making or what they're investing in. I mean, anything and everything that could touch your deal, you need to understand, right? You need to have the bird's eye view of the market, the accounts, and everybody in that account to understand how everything could affect the future of your deal. Because again, you're looking at a big game hunt and you're looking at anything that could affect this large deal. And when you have a large deal, literally the environment could affect it, the economy could affect it, individuals' relationship could affect it, anything could affect it. So you need to be more strategic. Also, and one of the skills I say is kind of the most underrated in sales, you need to be more creative, right? When you're looking at large accounts and you're building a campaign, it is not a straightforward linear process, right? I don't find a couple of leads, get a couple of contacts, set up a call, have a discovery call, have a presentation, have a demo, send out a proposal, negotiation. It's not a linear cycle. It's going to be very creative. You're going to be giving some resources demos if you have a demo. You're going to be talking pricing with other resources. You're going to be talking discovery with others, and you're going to be just meeting others. Others you're going to be taking out for a beer. There's going to be many moving pieces at any point in time, and you're really going to have to dig down and be creative about how do I engage everybody in this account with the right tone, with the right speed, and at the right stage that they want to be engaged in, right? A lot of moving pieces, and you need to be creative to be able to bring all that together. And that leads to my next kind of mindset idea is that you have total ownership. Now more than ever, you have total ownership. And the analogy I like to use is director of a play. Much like the director of play owns the audience experience, right? You own that customer experience. And so with the director, if the lights go out, I'm sorry, but that's his fault. If, the air conditioning turns off, if the actors don't perform, That's all the director's fault because the director is in charge of the entire audience experience. Much like a strategic rep or a sales manager or a CRO, you're in charge of that customer experience. So whether it's figuring out the technology and how they understand technology, right? How you're going to present your pricing, how they're going to liaise or interact with your executives or with your technical staff, you need to understand and own everything in that account. Um, which is extremely important for strategic accounts because any single interaction that wasn't purposeful or wasn't known about could derail a huge deal. And that's why it's so critical to have ownership. So, what I want to do is I'm going to give you a quick exercise because I always think there should be practical things you take away. So, for a quick exercise, here's a great exercise. This improves mindset. So I want you to open up a document, take out a piece of paper if you're old school or however you do this. Think of your biggest customer, and you can do this for all your customers, but think about your biggest deal or customer or prospect right now. And I want you to write down 20 things you think could affect your deal, right? And I'm not looking for the price and the functionality. We've evolved beyond that. We're big game hunting now. I really want you to think about the most abstract facts that you think could affect this deal, positively or negatively, right? It could be, I'm just going to throw this out there. No, it sounds crazy. It could be the weather in Switzerland in July, right? Because maybe you have a meeting there, or maybe they're opening up a new facility. It could be hobbies you find on the CFO's face page because you're trying to build a better relationship with the CFO and you want something to talk about, or you may want an outing to take them to. Could be an upcoming food festival because the CEO is a foodie. Again, it could be commodity pricing in China because some of the raw materials like cotton is used in manufacturing for your customers. It could be anything you think that could, again, positively or negatively affect your deal. So write all that down, and that's going to start expanding your mindset and expanding your brain on thinking about enlarging the kind of ecosphere that is sitting around your living and breathing deal. So that was a big one. The next big idea, the second reason why you're having a hard time closing those large deals is that you need to focus on relationship, not revenue. This is a big change for a lot of, I will say sales reps, I'll say sales managers, I'll even say CROs and CEOs, is the focus on relationship. Now, when I covered Disney, which famously calls its customers guests, I had an executive there and he would always tell me, I don't want to hear about increasing revenue per guest. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear about how to make that guest more loyal. And if you make that guest more loyal, they're going to spend more money. They're going to bring friends and family. The revenue is going to increase. And I think you need that same mindset. Of course, at the end of the day, we're all trying to close revenue and get money from these accounts, but you need to focus on the relationship. That's what you need to affect for a large account. So if you're thinking about how you move the ball forward day to day, another quick story. I had when I worked at SAP, I worked with a consultant, an outside consultant used to come into companies and fix their BI and analytics and whatnot. And all the companies would have the same story. I mean, unbelievable, same story. Like, I have 50 analytics, I need 75 analytics, or I need 100 analytics because, we all know the secret is in analytics to being successful. And what the consultant would say is, let's clear the board. Let's get rid of all the analytics you have today. I only want to see a handful of analytics. Let's start with one bucket. And that one bucket is going to be the analytics that you can actually affect today. What can you actually do today and affect something? So all of the revenue analytics were gone because you can't directly affect revenue, right? You can't go out there and close $1 million deal. What you can affect is activity, customer relationship, how they feel about your reputation, any type of engagement. Those activities is what you can directly affect today. And that's what you need to think of. Revenue is in the back of your mind. Of course, revenue is at the end of the road. But what you're doing day to day is really cementing your relationship with the customer. And that's how you need to think about it to be strategic about these large accounts, right? If you just looked at a sales forecast every day, you could literally print it out and hang it on your wall. It's the same forecast, right? It's the same forecast. The money's not changing. Revenue's not changing. Only your relationship is really changing. So now I know you're saying, well, how do I track relationship? Well, that's what you have to do. You have to track the number of contacts that you've engaged with, what their influence is, what your overall influence to the account is, what your relationship with each of these contacts is, what you feel your reputation is with the account. These are what you need to measure. And, at Catch Moby, we kind of track several pillars of an account success, we don't really normally forecast for our customers like, activity-based forecast. Oh, you had a demo. Oh, you're at the proposal stage. Because again, these large accounts are not linear. What you need to be tracking is your success in several different categories, right? You could be looking at the financial category, right? How do they feel about your pricing? How do they feel about your pricing model? How easy it is for them to buy from you. You could be looking at functionality, right? My service or product, how does it suit their business goals? You could be looking at technology. Is my tech stack compatible? You could be looking at security. You could look at any of these categories, and we kind of rank them from red to green, and it kind of dictates what you need to do with the customer. Hey, I've got a red in the price category, and I've got a red in the security. Well, I happen to have a meeting with someone who's on the pricing committee and on the IT group. So I'm going to bring these points up and try and move that up to a neutral, to a yellow. That's really how you need to manage your account and start thinking about your relationship, right? How is my reputation? Do they feel like I'm going to be a good partner? Because again, with larger deals, reputation is so critical. If you have a smaller account and a mid deal and you're selling, I don't know, put numbers out there, but anything could be big for anybody, but you've got a 5K deal or a 10K deal, that customer is not so much worried about relationship or reputation. They're really going to be worried on price and function. If I lose 5 grand, it's bad, but not such a big deal. When you're closing in the 6 figures or 7 figures type deal, those are the kind of deals that get people fired. And that's what you need to think of. These are the deals that get people fired. And so they're not just looking for functionality, right? They're looking for a relationship. How steady is this partner going to grow with me and support me as I continue to make this huge investment that literally can affect my career? And so to do that, you need to really focus about building that relationship. Now, the third next reason why we're not closing a lot of large deals is that your engagement with your customer needs to be more personal and engaging. And this is kind of a reason that goes across really all selling, but it gets magnified when you're looking at large deals. Your engagement today, we talked about kind of cutting through the noise and those stories from the CROs about how they're so beleaguered and tired, they can't get anybody on the phone, nobody can answer their email. The key is sending the right message to the right person at the right time to engage that person and being more personal. So let me hit you a statistic because we all know we love statistics, right? Inc. magazine reported that 70% of B2B sales reps were not prepared for their sales calls. Can you believe that? 70%. Which actually, if you follow all statistics, makes sense because they probably don't have time because less than 40% of what a sales rep does is a revenue generating activity. Less than 40%. I mean, don't you want your salespeople at least 80 or 90% focused on generating revenue? Current stat, less than 40%. But then again, that makes sense because less than 50% of reps are hitting their quotas. So we kind of have this epidemic of sales reps don't have enough time to sell. They're doing too much administrative and overhead work. They're doing too much research. They're not hitting their numbers. They're not spending the time selling, which makes sense. If 40% of your time is selling, you're going to hit 50% of your number. Kind of makes sense. So, I mean, that's, in a nutshell, what we do is we do all that blocking and tackling at Catch Moby, all that kind of sales enablement and contacting so that the sales rep can really spend more of their time just selling customers. But what we've seen is the key is to be personal and engaging. Remember, you're building that relationship, and the way to cut through noise and the way to say, hey, I'm not just a vendor, but I want to be your partner is to be authentic, be personal, and be engaging. So you should actually have a customer engagement strategy completely mapped out. And again, different from an account plan where we're just kind of mapping out, hey, who's the competitor? What technologies are they using? What partners am I going to engage? This is an actual customer engagement strategy. So you're mapping out every single touch point your customer is going to make with your brand. Right now, this sounds like, hey, now I'm talking about PR marketing. This is at the heart of sales as well. Because remember, as a sales executive or a sales manager, even a CRO, you own the customer experience in these large accounts. So if your customer is going to hit your website, you need to make sure that message and tone and themes that you want in your account are on your website. If they're going to go to a conference, make sure it's there. If you're going to send them collateral or emails, make sure it's there. Make sure there's a consistent theme, a consistent tone, and it's consistent to the stage of your relationship with that large account. This is a customer engagement strategy, and you have to start thinking about this as a strategic account rep. Now, when we talk about emails, face-to-face visits, Zoom calls, trips to your website, like we mentioned, collateral, this and of course social media, all again needs to mimic the tone you want with the account, the stage of your relationship, and the message or the three key themes that you want to speak to your customer, right? It has to be highly personalized and relevant because no large account is going to build a relationship with you when they're getting handed generic collateral, right? Or they're hunting down your website, which is why we build personal landing pages for large accounts, which I think is a great idea at CatchMobi, because nobody wants an executive hunting through your company page to try and look for a useful case study, to try and look for a brochure for the product they're going to buy, to try and look for an ROI, to try and look for a contact. That's why we build kind of microsites specific just to each customer. And that's a way of personalizing your relationship, saying, hey, I'm investing in this relationship, right? Because I just personalized an asset, went out of my way to create kind of the red carpet for you for a personal customer journey to come and to buy my brand and buy my solution. So that personalization is key. And I think that's a challenge for a lot of salespeople because they're not used to these marketing type techniques. They're not used to this engagement. They're not used to the personalization. They're not used to thinking about customer journey, right? A lot of times that's either in the customer support or success area or it's in marketing, but a lot of times sales doesn't think about that. But in strategic accounts, that's just such a critical factor because again, these customers want to build a relationship with you, right? And the way you show that relationship, the way you get to the nirvana of a relationship, which is trust, is personalizing that journey and showing that, hey, I can put together an experience for you. Much like when you buy my product or service, this is kind of a foreshadowing of what's going to happen when you buy my product or service. It's going to be personalized and provide a lot of value. So here's another quick exercise. For every executive email that you're going to send out this week, I want you to include one fun fact. This could be from the list you made previously. Remember, we talked about the mindset list where we're going to have all these abstract, crazy things that are going to affect your deal. So it could be something like that, like the food festival. It could be a local event. It could be referencing the weather, something that happened with a sports team. And this is important because it will instantly, if not subconsciously, start building a different, more personal relationship with you. I know you want to get out there and get your sales message. This is the benefit. This is why you should talk to me. This is why you should sell. But when you add that little personal fact or you add something that's kind of off script, what it does is it takes them out of their routine, right? Shocks them a little bit. And it starts to subconsciously build a parallel personal relationship with them. And hey, we love statistics. Harvard found that 90% of a buying decision is subconscious. So if I were you, I'd be tapping into that subconscious from day one with your very first email. All right, moving on. The fourth big reason why we can't close these large accounts. The number 4, your company needs to understand strategic accounts are different. So we've talked about your mindset, right? Now we're kind of getting a little bit larger and we're talking about the organization around you, right? It could be your company. You could be a small startup with a handful of people, or you could be a billion-dollar enterprise. Right? When I worked at AT&T and we had 250 billion in revenue and I had 250,000 employees or something crazy like that, even I wasn't able to get the resources I needed. And I had to work with them to put a plan in place to say, look, these strategic accounts are different. The go-to-market is completely different. So this is a message you need to take to your company if they don't already know it. The way you forecast is different. And I've got a lot of funny stories I'm going to put out on my LinkedIn Shorts or maybe in a follow-up podcast about forecasting meetings where like you're doing the quick hit deals and then you get to the strategic reps, and it's just kind of laughable because it's a totally different process to be in a forecast or an account meeting with a strategic account rep. It's completely different. The way you do account reviews, and managers go in and do account reviews, is totally different. The way you engage executives and other resources, right? You're going to have a full-fledged plan for when each of the members of your virtual team, which could include executives or tech or support or supporting cast, are going to make an appearance. Remember the play analogy, right? So you've got this plan set and forth of engagement between your executives, and they need to follow the script. The way you utilize marketing, now this is critical. The way you utilize marketing is going to be completely different. And I've always found this, I found this as a sore spot, right? The alignment between sales and marketing has always been a challenge because marketing is not built to support strategic accounts. There, I said it. It's true. It's out there. They are not built for this, right? They are built for top of the funnel, awareness, lead gen, strategy and branding, all of these activities. And I've literally had CMOs tell me, look, these sales guys come and they want me to market to one account at a time. I don't have the resources for that. And I don't have the systems for that. Because when you think about it, all of the analytics, the tools, the way you engage, it's all got to be set up differently for strategic accounts. Another reason why we kind of come in with a SWAT team, because our tools are all calibrated just for strategic accounts. Our statistics, the metrics we look at that are more important, are all calibrated for strategic accounts. And let me give you an example. When you set up a landing page as a company, you're tracking who's hitting that landing page. And you may say, hey, we drove 1,000 visitors to our landing page. That's great. And we got 100 conversions. Fantastic. In strategic accounts, I might say, we drove 2 people to our landing page, right? I only got 2 people to come to our landing page, but that is more important than your 1,000 because I only invited 5. And they're the CFO, CRO, CMO executives. And I got two executives to visit a specific landing page about your value prop. That's more valuable anytime. But those kind of get diluted in these large marketing statistics about, 1,000 visitors, 5 visitors. That's not important. We're looking at quality over quantity. So again, these tools are different. Your systems and processes are different. CRMs, notoriously bad for strategic accounts, right? CRMs are just tracking tasks, activities, revenue forecast, and kind of your traditional deal progression. But they're not truly equipped to understand the buying relationship, right? We talk about reputation, relationship. We talk about the functionality, the technology, the financial, all these different categories, and the maturity of your relationship and level of trust with these buyers. None of that is captured in a CRM. So you're looking at different tools for that. So the company organization needs to understand that's totally different. The fifth and final important point, and this comes right from understanding, and your mindset needs to change, right? Understanding your organization is different. You need to be more strategic. The fifth reason is that you need support, right? To make this happen, you need more support. And it's funny, I was reading a statistic, I think it was from Harvard or Gartner or one of those agencies that said the most successful sales organizations, right? The most successful sales organizations, 50% of their investment is in non-selling roles. Think about that for a minute. 50% of your budget is in non-selling roles. Could be BDRs or research. I know we say BDR selling, but non-AE roles. I got to tell you, over the decades I've been in sales, I don't know one sales organization that has spent that much money on non-sales roles, right? You may have an SDR who's kind of selling. You may have a BDR. You may have a sales op person for, but you have 15, 20 reps. So I don't know one organization that's done that. But especially for strategic accounts, you're going to need more support. And it makes sense. You're bringing in a bigger deal. You're going to need more support. So you're going to think about the level of research. When we talk about that ecosphere and all that information you need to gather, who's going to gather that information? Who's going to read all the 10Ks? Who's going to visit the social profiles of all the executives? Who's going to put it together and map out all these hierarchies and what their influence is? Who's going to understand all the partners and competitors? Who's going to understand the markets and the geographies? And I mean, this takes a lot of time to research. And, again, this is where we found our niche because we kind of plugged that hole because let's face it, A, salespeople are not trained to be research analysts. They're not trained to be marketers. And B, they don't like it. And we all know if a salesperson doesn't like it or anybody doesn't like something, they're not going to focus their time on it, which again goes back to the stat of why so many salespeople are unprepared for their calls or for their meetings. So you need to go back to your organization and tell them that you need support, right? It's very tough to get a hold of people nowadays in your accounts, and especially since COVID, this has gotten worse. And so it's extremely hard to sell. And so that's why there's more and more research needed. How do I get a hold of these contacts? How do I build that compelling message? What interesting facts or what themes can I string together? I'm looking at, they're opening up a new manufacturing facility, but there's new regulations coming in the EU that's going to, increase costs, and our software can help with that. You really need to kind of string together these theories or stories or themes, but that's got to be built on a huge amount of research and sales intelligence. But, unfortunately, like I said, most sales organizations don't spend money on that support. Their first thought is, let's hire more salespeople, right? Even though, frankly, most salespeople are not hitting their number. So let's just hire more salespeople to not hit their number. What you need to do is provide more support to your strategic sales reps so you can get as much productivity out of them as possible. I mean, you hire these strategic sales reps because they can sell. Why not have them out there selling? So, again, if you look at this, a strategic rep really needs support through the entire life cycle, which is another kind of strange thought. We often look at marketing and market engagement, and I have to say I've had this specific experience. Marketing will say, hey, I throw a lead over the fence, which, leads are not very useful for large accounts. Oh, I got one person to attend a meeting. That's not going to crack open a large account. But then I've gone back to marketing and said, hey, I've met with this person. I kind of need more specific collateral because I'm really trying to hit this pain point. I'm really trying to build reputation. And marketing said, hey, literally, they've said, I can't talk to you. I can't talk to you because you're already engaged in the account and I can't work with you, right? Because we build relationships to get leads. We're lead gen. And then after that point, we throw it over the fence and we don't work with sales anymore because we don't have the resources to. So, I mean, that is one of the biggest blocks in the alignment between sales and marketing that I've seen. Marketing does not continue through the sales cycle. Now, for small and medium accounts, maybe okay, sales rep can run with it. But what we found is in strategic accounts, what I've seen over my career, is that these accounts continually need to be marketed to throughout the entire account because you're continually trying to persuade these customers that you have the reputation they can trust, that you can support them, that you can be a partner, and that you can deliver the solution that they want. And marketing is pivotal to helping them change their mind or persuade them when it comes to events, collateral, copy or creative you need to write for social engagements, for email engagement, whatever it is. Marketing is critical to that. And I think that's a challenge for a lot of salespeople. When they engage with a strategic account, they go right into selling mode. Who are the influencers? Who has the budget? And I'm going to sell to each of these people. And they really do themselves a disservice because they're not building that relationship. That relationship is what makes your 50K deal a 500K deal. That relationship is what makes your one-time deal a recurring deal every year, upsell, cross-sell, et cetera. So I'm going to combine these last 2 points. I'm going to give you some more homework because I think, again, these exercises are really important. Make a list of the top 5 things you need from your organization. Remember, you're building a campaign, right? And your campaign is not only just an account plan, it's anything and everything that affects your deal. Now, to do that campaign, to execute on that campaign, you need resources from your organization. So make a list right now, the top 5 things you need from your organization to support your sales efforts. Now, make sure you tie them to a customer, right? Because we want to say, hey, there's a benefit, not just, hey, I want a brand new car, right? It could be, let me give you some examples. It could be, I want 1 hour a week with someone from marketing to help me message and create collateral for this strategic account, right? It could be, I need a special account. It could be, I need a new system or some kind of software that can help me track relationship. It could be any or all of those on your list, but make that list and hand it to your organization. So there we have kind of 5 key reasons why we're all not closing enough large deals or strategic accounts. So just to recap, A, you got to change your mindset, right? You got to think bigger is better. You got to think strategic. You got to be focused on building relationships. It's not about the revenue. It is eventually. But the way you get to the revenue is through the relationships. C, make your customer engagement more personal. Remember, right person, right time with the right message. Be compelling. This is not a hit and run sale. When you have strategic accounts, you can have 5 accounts or 10 accounts. You can't burn through those accounts looking for interest. You're stuck with those accounts. You need to make an impression and you need to already have a thought in your mind, I'm going to close this customer. So make that engagement personal. Also, make sure your company understands that you're different, right? As a strategic account rep, your organization, your initiative, your mission, your campaign is different, and ask them for the support you need. So as all, I hope you found a lot of value in these 5 points. I guarantee you do some of the exercise, start thinking this way. You're going to start working on bigger and better deals. Now, any questions or comments, as always, head over to catchmoby.com. Drop us a note. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter because you're going to get exclusive content, much like was in this podcast, exclusive content solely focused on closing strategic accounts and bigger deals that you're not going to get anywhere else. And while you're at it, just click subscribe because you don't want to miss any of these episodes. Now, speaking of episodes, let's look at a couple of upcoming episodes. we have a really great podcast coming on the secret of storytelling and the 3 key themes. This is one that I've used throughout my career. 3 key themes that you keep hammering into your customer's head, not literally, but you hammer it into their head and you turn these customers into your own champion. Now you've got sellers within your customer's organization for you. We have another great episode that a lot of sales reps and executives and CROs have asked me about, how to build customer relationships remotely over Zoom, right? A lot of you are selling over Zoom. We're not taking customers out for beers anymore. I used to do that all the time at Oracle, and I joke with people. We used to have a standing order at Mastro's, a big steakhouse, for the seafood tower, right? That was the closer. We wanted to take a customer out to a closing dinner. We'd call Mastro, be like, get that seafood tower ready. A huge tower of every type of seafood you could think of. That was our closing dinner. We can't do that anymore, right? We have to sell over Zoom. But I've got some great tips and techniques on how you can still build that relationship and take it to casual and build that trust over a virtual Zoom. Another great episode we have coming is, are analytics really useful, right? We talked about science and analytics. I gave you that story about SAP. And a lot of people are trying to make sales into a science and not an art. When we all know the higher you go up in the totem pole and the larger these accounts are, it really is an art and not a science. So we have a great episode to cut through all the noise, all the analytics, focusing on what analytics are actually going to provide you value and which analytics are just hype. So those are some great upcoming episodes. Again, thank you for attending the Catch Moby Strategic Sales Podcast. Really appreciate you being here. I know you have a lot of podcasts to listen to. Click subscribe, hit us up at catchmoby.com, and we'll talk to you soon.